Welcome, everyone. We're going to go ahead and let everyone get started or get connected here before we get started. Are you able to get in, Jen? Are you connecting?
Yeah, it says I'm here.
Okay, we can't see your video yet.
Whenever I click on it, it says I can't start my video because the host has stopped it.
Not this again. Okay.
Sorry.
Let me. Okay, now. There you are.
Yay.
Good. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. So thank you all for joining us again for this week's edition of Faculty Friday. Today we have our Associate Dean of Academic Affairs, Ms. Jennifer Brown. And without further ado, I'll send it over to you for a presentation, and then we will follow up with some question and answer time.
Excellent. Thanks, everybody. Welcome. We're excited that you're here. My name is Jennifer Brown. I'm the Associate Dean for Academic Affairs. And we are going to go through kind of a brief presentation about some of the questions that I think everybody is having or that a lot of people are having. And then we will, I hope, leave plenty of time for questions. I can't wait to hear what everybody has going on. So, Kristen, I'm going to ask you real quick, when I'm clicking on a screen share, let me, here we go. My apologies. All right, can everybody see that?
Yep, we're good.
All right, excellent. So one of the things that everybody's asking questions about is the pods. How do the pods work? Are there really no scheduled classes? Is that actually true? What is going on with the pods? So I wanted to talk a little bit about how those work. So there are really no scheduled classes. There are classes that are scheduled that are live in person with our faculty that you can attend, that we're talking about a little bit later. But when you are doing kind of your first pass through the content with your peers, in the way that some schools do in a live lecture format, we don't schedule those for you. We do set up slots in the learning pods. You can see one of our learning pods in action right here. And through our scheduling software, you can see this pod session room 106 from 6 to 9 is sold out with 6 people that have been registered there because we know that only 6 people fit, or pod 103 from 9 to 12, only 4 were registered in there because that pod only fits 4. So you get to kind of see what's available, and then you get to sign up at the time slot that you want. And then you go into the pods and you work through the content that has been carefully curated by our faculty, pardon me, that is mixed with academic exercises to help you really reinforce what you're learning with them during the day. And then you schedule your next pod for the next day, kind of like that throughout the cycle. So really you get to schedule it yourself. Pardon me, one second. And decide what time of day is going to work for you. You can plan out scheduling if you find study groups that you really like to work with and you enjoy and are getting a lot out of working with them together. You guys can plan out and sign up for the same pods at the same times. We have lots of people that just are doing different pods, different times, different days, because they like getting the perspective of different kinds of students about the way that they are thinking through some of the content. And it's really very flexible in that way. So how do they interact with faculty then? If faculty are just pre-recording stuff, and then that doesn't make any sense. So they actually interact with our faculty quite a bit. The first way is through an app we called Pronto that we use, and it does a couple of different things. I am so sorry. Pardon me. So while in your pods, there is a chat channel for each of the courses that you're taking at any given time. And a student at any time from any pod can chat a question to the whole group and can tag a professor or can see if anybody else that's on the chat can answer it. So professors will do a few different things. Either they'll give a pretty comprehensive answer, like you'll see that Dr. Newbell did here at the top left with the Foundations of Medicine. That way, if you have the same question that somebody else had 3 hours ago, you can go back, you can look at the question, you can see what questions people had earlier in the day to see if there's any good information that's going to be helpful to you and to your group as you're moving through. So everybody can see what all the questions are and can be learning from other people's learning. And then we also have our faculty that really enjoy interacting with the students. So whenever a faculty member has content that is playing at any given time during any given cycle, often they will be on campus so that when students have questions, they could say like, hey, do you have a minute? Can you come over and talk to us in small groups? So you'll have a group of students in a pod, and here Dr. Romana was in a couple of different rooms, both to just kind of be on call for questions or to walk over and say hello and answer questions live with students while they were in their pods. And then we'll talk more about the review cycles in just a minute, but we also have every other week on Thursday and Friday are our end of cycle review sessions. So we do have those live in our lecture hall. Students can come to those if they feel like they want to get the information that's going to be delivered at those. And we use the data from all the questions that students are answering throughout the previous week and a half to drive what we're talking about in those review sessions. So students are getting daily quizzes in addition to the quizzes that they do as a group in their pods. And we use that to assess like what are students really confident with and what are students not as confident with, and how do we drive those conversations. So we're doing those every Thursday and Friday morning. And then every Thursday and Friday afternoons, we have makeup times or advanced content for any of our labs. So if you are in your osteopathic medical manipulation lab and you want some extra practice or you haven't quite mastered a skill, you can sign up for times to go into those small groups on Friday or Thursday afternoons. Same with our clinical labs. If you are not quite as comfortable as you want to be or still need to get a sign off or whatnot with any of our clinical tasks, then you can go into those labs on the afternoons, and that will be the same for structure and function with our anatomy lab once that course starts here at the end of this month. So that's kind of how our faculty interaction works. When faculty are teaching, they're actually getting a fair amount of interaction, both live and in person, but also for the whole class that students can see. They also work as docents. Each of our faculty members has a group of docentees or advisees that they work with, and every student has 2 docents, one from the biomedical sciences and one from clinical affairs. So they have a clinician and a basic scientist. And really a docent acts as a mentor, a resource. If you were in a museum, a docent kind of walks you around the museum and tells you what is where and what you need to know about any of the works of art that are there. And so these faculty members are really there to help guide a student and help them navigate any of the college resources that maybe a student doesn't know are available, doesn't know the best way to approach, and to really advise and guide them over the course of the 4 years that they're with us. They will typically keep the same docent or the same 2 docents throughout the 4 years of their time with us so that they can establish relationships over time with those 2 individuals and have someone that they know that they can really rely on in case they have questions or in case they have something that comes up that they need a little additional help with. So that's our faculty interaction. Academic cycles. So we split every course and every kind of component of the curriculum into 2-week cycles. During that first week, you have 5 full days of assigned content. You're going to be doing anywhere between 4 and 6 hours a day of actual taking in that content. And then you do have typically 2 lab times during that week. During structure and function, that's going to be 3 lab times because we're adding that anatomy lab into it for the second half of the semester in the fall of your first year. And then the next week, we only have 3 new days of content. The last 2 days of that second week, we have 0 new content. And in the mornings, we do those academic kind of didactic lectures. And then in the afternoons, we do those lab reviews. So if you are acing everything, you feel really comfortable, you think you're totally caught up and in the right places, then you can go have a 4-day weekend and don't need to come to any of those. But if you feel like you need to catch up a little bit more, or like you want to ask questions additionally live of the faculty, or if you need a little bit more practice on any of those skills that you're learning, then you can absolutely come on those Thursdays and Fridays. If you're having trouble in a particular area, then we will be more highly recommending that through our learning services, through our docents, through our individual faculty members. But you only have new content for 8 out of every 10 days that you have in class. This is very busy. It's also on our website, so if you want to see it again, but I did want to walk through what some of the typical questions we get about the overview of the curriculum is. So first I want to talk about CEPA, or Core Entrustable Professional Activities. Basically, this is the course in which you're learning all the skills that you're going to need to be an actor. Your communication skills, your physical diagnosis and exam skills, your scribing skills or your note-taking skills, how to look at an ear, look at an eye, listen to a heart, those kinds of things. After the osteopathic principles course at the beginning of the year, then also all of our OMM and OPP content rolls into CEPA. And that is a course that you have throughout the entirety of your time with us, because we're making sure that as you're moving through your second year, where you're going to be scribing, which we'll talk more about in a minute, and then into your clinical experiences, that you have all of the things that you're going to need in order to be an excellent, very prepared resident on the first day after your graduation when you show up on July 1st in your clinical setting. So in addition to that, I did want to take a little bit to talk about the longitudinal community medicine. That is the course that you will be performing your scribing services in. So twice a month after your first year, you will be scribing in a clinical setting somewhere. We train you on how to do that during your first year. There's a component of the Core and Trustable Professional Activities course that kind of teaches you and certifies you. We do use the medical record, the EMR, for one of our large partner hospitals here in the area, so that it's the same one that you're training on that you're going to get to use when you're doing some of that service. So for 2 8-hour shifts a month, you're going to be in the clinic, you're going to be providing a valuable service, in addition to learning more about the healthcare teams that you're going to be working with and for as a professional, and getting some more context for what it is that you're learning throughout your organ system courses in that second year, and how they're going to be applied when you start to see patients, and what that really looks like in real life. So that first year is really kind of the first layer of what we're trying to build. It's a discipline-based curriculum. And then the second year, we go back and we overlay that by specialty or by organ system. So that's the second pass. It's just information a little bit more complex before you go into your clinical experiences. And I know that our clinical team is going to talk to you much more about rotations and clinical experiences, but those are pretty unique for us as well, in that we get the first week and the last week of each of those rotations to have you on campus, where we can, again, add another layer to that learning to make sure that you really understand what you need to go, or what you need to know when you're going into, say, your internal medicine residency, and that when you come out, you've learned everything that you need to know. And we have the opportunity to fill in on any of those experiences with our simulation team, if those haven't been done yet, and help you while you're prepped for your shelf exam at the end of those. So we think that's a really great way to make sure that you're getting everything that you can out of those experiences, and having a really good relationship with a preceptor, and can be as helpful as possible and as integrated as possible in those clinical experiences. We do have, at the end of the second year, transitions to clinical care and clinical management, where you're going to be getting ready for going into rotations, and doing some review of the first 2 years, so that you can prepare for your licensing exam that comes at the end of that second year, and that we can make sure that you are in possession of all the knowledge and skills that you need to perform really well on both that exam and as you're entering into your clinical experiences. So not to say that there's not a ton layered into the rest of the curriculum that's going to prepare you to perform well on those exams, because there is, but we can talk about that more as you have specific questions. So those were the things that I had prepared, because I know that's where most of the questions that we've been getting have been coming from. So at that point, what questions are coming up, Kristen?
So far, we're not seeing a lot coming in through here. Let me check with Facebook and YouTube.
Okay, great.
And if you do have questions, if you're on Facebook or YouTube, we are watching the chats there. So go ahead and drop the questions in the chat function there. And then if you are joining us here on Zoom, then you can use the Q&A function to drop your questions in. I apologize, I should have mentioned that before.
Let's see if I have any more questions that have been coming up recently. Let's see, we will have some advanced courses eventually. I think that's a good place to start. We do have planned one advanced course very specifically in our second year for our students that are interested in surgical specialties. It's going to be our advanced dissection course. So during the first year, during your structure and function course, all of your anatomy is going to be prosected and digital. Prosected meaning that you're going to see a specimen that has been pre-prepared so that you can go and you can recognize the structures as you are in the lab. have quizzes, have discussions with your lab instructor while you're in there, but you're not going to actually be dissecting yourself. And then at the second year, if you're interested in any of those surgical specialties or think that you might be, you can apply to take the Advanced Anatomy Dissection course, where you're going to be working with our anatomy team to dissect and prosect for the first year students or for your other second year students as they're moving through those courses, and to learn much more about the dissection process.
Awesome. We do have a couple questions coming in here.
Great.
So the first one is there an opportunity to do some service learning through free clinics?
Yes, absolutely. So we do have a free clinic that we partner with, and as soon as students are at the point where they're ready to go in and be helpful and safe with those partnering physicians that work in the free clinic, then we are absolutely able to do that and have plans. I know that Dr. Doherty talked about that much more at length, and that's a little more in his wheelhouse than in mine. So I'll refer you to the recording from last week to learn a little bit more about that. But yes, we will have opportunities for free clinic volunteering.
Okay, now we have a question about the wellness modules. So I understand you have wellness modules embedded in your curriculum. How will these be structured? Will there be any in-person wellness activities such as yoga classes?
I love this question. Thank you. Yes, so we do have wellness as part of the curriculum. We have given you credit hours as part of the SEPA course to take care of yourself. So we ask that you do at least 1 hour of wellness activity and document it throughout our learning or through our learning management system every week. This can be anything from the wellness activities that we do provide. We do have yoga classes. We also do kind of structured sign up to come play basketball, volleyball, soccer, pickleball, whatever. We offer, let's see, what have we had recently? I think we've done some sound baths. I think that we've done several yoga classes. I know we have several other activities planned, but this can be in any component of your wellness. So there are, 8 components that we really work with. So it could be your physical, emotional, spiritual, financial, I don't remember the others off the top of my head, but anything that you're doing in those areas to take care of yourself that's not studying, we encourage you to do that because we understand that the balance between what we're asking you to do and what you need to do in order to prepare to be a physician can scoot some of those other things out of your life, and it's important. So we are trying to model that ourselves as staff and faculty, but also, yes, lots of in-person wellness activities that we offer, cooking with your family can count. Having a picnic in the park with your kids or your spouse or your parents or your social circle can count. But we want to make sure that students are at least thinking about that because being a great physician also takes a work-life balance so that you can keep yourself even and give the best care to your patients.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, so next one. It sounds like the curriculum is very much collaborative and problem-based, which sounds really exciting. What types of traits or learning styles do you think are beneficial for students who do well in these courses?
Oh, that's a great question as well. Our curriculum is extremely collaborative. And I want to take a note to outline a little bit about our theory behind why we're doing things the way that we're doing in these pods. As a practicing healthcare provider, you are going to be working in teams for your entire career. You are never going to be a solo, well, you might be if you work somewhere really rural by yourself, but in most cases, you're going to be working with a variety of providers. You're going to be working with other physicians, with nurses, nurse practitioners, scribes, phlebotomists, like so many people. And one of the things that we want to make sure of is that, I'm working from home and those are my giant dogs. One of the things that we want to make sure you can do is to problem solve in groups with people that think differently than you and may have a totally different perspective than you do. We also want to make sure that you can communicate really, really well with groups and that you can show your leadership skills in ways that both have you at the helm, but also support someone else in their leadership. So we actually assign roles every day to everyone that's in a pod so that they can practice all those kinds of different leadership skills. Everything from making sure everybody's on time to keeping people on track to asking questions of the other experts that are out there. And so I would say that if you are someone that really has trouble working in a group, and working collaboratively with your colleagues pretty constantly, then this might not be the best fit for you. But if you really enjoy working collaboratively and you really enjoy the teamwork, I think that this is a really great fit. What we've noticed is that many of our students are telling us currently that they really appreciate being able to hear every day, particularly with those super hard concepts. They're in the middle of biochemistry right now, so it's been a bit much as we're getting used to that, but they've really said that they enjoy hearing the way that other students are thinking through concepts, because it's totally different than the way that they have been thinking through them, but it really expands their opportunity to understand the material in a more complete way, which has been helping. We've had a couple students tell us that they're learning more and more easily now than they ever had the opportunity to do in undergraduate because of that collaborative learning that we're trying to set up. We are absolutely not trying to have our students compete against each other. Our goal is to have all of our students working together to have everyone perform at their best, and are intentionally designing a culture and a community that allows students to help each other and that encourages students to help each other. Because I think that whether you are asking questions or answering questions with your peers, everyone's learning becomes better and everyone's understanding becomes better. And that's really what the data has shown us from all the research studies on adult education and adult learning, which is where we have based a lot of our choices about how we're going to put the curriculum together.
Okay, and we did hear them in the background, but Ricky is asking on Facebook how Percy and Magnus are doing.
Percy and Magnus are doing very, very well. Thank you. Magnus is almost 1.5 years, so he gets to go have surgery soon, which means hopefully he will stop eating my couches. They are doing well. Thank you.
All right, next question. So I've heard that there's a thesis component embedded with our research. What year in the curriculum will we submit our thesis for defense?
So I'm going to let Dr. Bills talk about this much more comprehensively when you do Research Faculty Friday. But in general, it's not necessarily a thesis, but we want to make sure that everybody gets published while they're here. So a couple different points. One, every student is going to get assigned a research mentor and is going to have at least one project that they will complete with either a white paper or a grant submission or a presentation submission by the end of their 4th year, which is kind of after match and when we're moving into graduation, when those will be presented at one of our research days with obviously our community, but also bringing in some research community from outside is our goal right now. That being said, we do have opportunities for students to do kind of just the bare minimum on that, or much more. We have last night, actually, I believe 18 of our faculty members presented their research plans. And over the weekend, our students are selecting who they want their research mentors to be. And then we're doing kind of a mini research match so that next week they'll get assigned to their research mentors and can start actually working on projects. So we do have time dedicated in the curriculum every week for students to be working on those research projects. And pushing forward on those research plans. We also do have a research track, which will allow you to accomplish even more research and get involved in that to a higher level. And then obviously get the research track designation on your transcript and on your dean's letter. That does involve over the summer break between 1st and 2nd year, staying here on campus and taking a couple of different courses with our research faculty, adding a research, it's called Journal Club elective, where you're learning how to dissect research as it comes out and really interpret how to interpret research as it comes out. How could you, well, who do you trust? How do you trust it? Why do you trust it more? And to really appreciate how the whole process works. And then some actual in the lab research over the summer as well, with any of the several labs that we have up and running in our community currently. So yes, you have to do something, but it can be anywhere from here to way up here, depending on what your interests are and how much you want to engage there.
Okay, and I imagine when we have Dr. Akinele and Dr. Manley on in a couple of weeks, they'll do a deeper dive into this, but if you can kind of give us a high level overview of this next question. What is the grading style? Letter grades, pass, fail, high pass, pass, and is the class ranked?
Basic sciences are a letter grade. Clerkships are pass, fail. And Sorry, a lot of this is in my head because it's still planned, but we haven't done on it yet. If you are in the top, I believe, quartile of your class, you will get a numerical class rank. And if you are the bottom 3/4 of the class, I believe you will just get a quartile. Let's see here, pass fail. We do have pass, high pass available for clerkships. So, pass fail honors, high honors for our core clerkships, and pass fail high in honors for our internships and sub-internships in your 4th year, because that's where you're really wanting to stand out for the residency programs that you're going to apply to. And we do have all of our grading policies in our catalog that is on the student portion of our website.
Okay, and then can you talk a little bit more about how the professors as docents and getting help from professors works? Maybe do a little bit deeper dive into that.
Sure.
And maybe give some examples.
Sure. Like, for example, today they're doing a lot of research. They have their first kind of research assignment due tonight that they're working on in pods today. So some people had questions about the assignment and questions about some of the content that was presented about research and what needed to happen there. So they put something on Pronto, and the faculty member that was in charge of that particular content and that created that particular content has been answering questions related to that content that they were watching today and that assignment that they're working on today. Faculty that are teaching a class that is happening right now will be available to answer questions related to the content for that class during the time that that class is going. During our Foundations of Medicine class, for the most part, we have 2 main biochemistry faculty members, and so they kind of switch off cycles. Is how they decided that they were going to change that up. So every other cycle, Dr. Romana will be on call, and then it's Dr. Newbell, because that is who created and really is watching the content from those. But once we're done with Foundations of Medicine, when Dr. Romana and Dr. Newbell don't really have content playing, then they won't be answering necessarily content-related questions regularly. But they do have docent assignments, and they are kind of checking in. Sometimes check in once a week. Sometimes you check in once a semester. It really depends on the relationship and what a student is needing or wanting from that kind of relationship. But I know many of our faculty members are having lunch in our cafe downstairs every once in a while with their docent students to just check in, see how things are going, talk to them about resources that we might have available through learning services or student affairs or counseling services or wellness services that students may not have incorporated into their schedules and plans yet. It's really kind of a safety net, a mentor and advice giver for each individual student that is a little more personally oriented than it is curriculum oriented for those relationships, if that makes sense.
All right, next question. Are the times for the pod sessions first come, first served, or do we have assigned groups that need to agree on a pod time together? Also, are pod times available throughout the day or only during certain hours?
That's a great question. And this was something that our students pushed back a little bit at the beginning, but we want to really help our students to become independent, self-directed learners. And so we kind of make everybody make those choices. So the way it works right now is that we have, I believe, 11 different pods that have a certain number of seats in each one of them. And we have spots or slots of time that are available in each of those pods in each day. So we ask that students sign up for one. We actually have almost enough seats to accommodate everybody at the same time all the time, but nobody really wants to be there that much because the building is open and times are schedulable from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. So if you finish with your designated time that you've signed up for, then students are doing a variety of different things. They're either scheduling another pod and coming back later in the day to finish up if they haven't done that yet, or to work together on any of the studying that they might want to do. Sometimes they'll go off campus, somebody's apartment, the library, the park, whatever, if they want to continue working together as a group, or sometimes they'll finish up what they need to get done on their own, all of which is totally okay. It is first come, first served. We haven't really had issues with that up to this point because we do have students that really like to work at a variety of different times of day. We have kind of our group that's always there from 6 to 9 in the morning. They really like to get it done first thing and over with, and then be able to use the rest of their day how they want. We typically like our most popular time right now is the 9 to 12, but then we also have people that are here from 6 to 10 or 7 to 10, depending on the day. So we do let students schedule those as they see fit, but it is first come, first served in the pods. I don't think we've had a time when we've filled up and someone hasn't been able to schedule at the time that they want yet. And when we're in the new building for your class, that's going to be 135 students. We will have an additional 20 student pods over there that our first year students are going to be. And so we, again, anticipate that the busyness of the pods is not ever going to be super competitive. That's our hope. Let's see here. I think I answered the whole question.
All right, so it looks like there's a question about having visitors on campus for prospective students. And currently, Noorda-COM campus is closed to visitors. We are not, unfortunately, due to COVID, we're not able to facilitate any kind of on-campus visits at this time. Hopefully, if COVID and the pandemic play nicely, we can do that in the future. But as of right now, we are unfortunately not able to allow any visits or on-campus tours. All right. Next question. Are there some places on campus to study after hours, especially during exam season?
Yes. So the big lecture hall that we have, when it's not being used for those review sessions every other week, is designated as a kind of study area for students. The tables move around really easily, and we have them conformed in a variety of different ways so that you can go there as a kind of quiet study space. We also, because not all the pods are filled all of the time, if the pod is not reserved, then students can use it to go study quietly on their own or in small groups on their own. So those are the places that we currently have on campus available to us. When it's nice outside, we do also have lots of places outside that have chairs, tables, park space to kind of stretch out in around campus. It's gorgeous. Other than that, we don't have other designated space at this moment.
Okay. All right. And then will they be watching the video lectures in the pods or beforehand?
This is a great question because I think it also speaks to one of our commitments to our students in that, and commitments to the school overall, in that we are wanting to not only innovate right now, but we want to innovate into the future. So the way that we have set up the entire enterprise is that we are trying new things all the time. And if they don't work, then we have set up the systems so that we can try something else, but also have the time to and the space to fix anything that didn't work exactly the way that we thought it was going to at the beginning. So originally the intent was that students were going to watch the videos for the first time in their pods, and that was going to be the way that it was going to go. But we have heard loud and clear from our current students that they want access to them earlier so that they can watch them before they go in to work with their colleagues and then work through them with their colleagues a second time. So originally we had them coming out at midnight the night before, but then we had students that wanted to be here at 6 a.m. and were getting up at 3:30 so that they could watch the videos first before they came in, and that's just not sustainable. So we are moving those, I think, to an earlier release the evening before at some point very soon. Because we want to be adjustable to the feedback that we're getting from our students in a variety of different ways, and to make sure that we're setting up a learning environment and learning opportunities that are going to be the best for you to prepare to become a great first-year resident in a great position.
All right. And again, this can be probably covered more in depth in a couple of weeks when we talk about testing and assessment. But the question is, are tests designed to mimic the style that we will see on boards?
Short answer is yes. Second answer is we're working up. So I've actually heard from a student earlier that they didn't really understand what board style question meant. And so I want to make sure that we're on the same page as that. At the end of your second year, you will take the COMLEX Level 1 exam, which is the first in a series of exams that you have to take in order to get your license. You'll take another one kind of towards the end of your third year. And then another one after your first year of residency. You have to take all of those in addition to your specialty exam later on in order to get your license to prescribe, to write orders, all of that. And if you don't pass them, then you can't move forward in the process. So those exams, the first two of them anyway, are multiple choice exams that are in clinical vignette format, which basically means that you have a described patient scenario and then a question related to that scenario, and then typically 5 different answer choices. Can be more than 5 depending on the exam and depending on which part you're on. Some of our students will also elect to take the USMLE, which is the licensing exam that MD students take, but that's up to them. But we can facilitate that. And all of our midterms are styled as though it were a clinical vignette. And we're kind of making them increasingly difficult over time, but we're not starting right at that because that's just a little much. Most of the vignettes that you're going to see on boards integrate material across years and across topics, organ systems, disciplines. So because our students are still at the beginning, they don't have enough to integrate. So they are not as long or complicated as they're going to get over time, but we are working very hard to ramp students up to get very good at answering multiple choice questions in that format, so that by the time we get to exam day, they've done so many questions that it's second nature and that their test taking skills at that level are extraordinary.
Okay, and can you talk about whether any of the courses or any components of the courses address issues such as cultural competency, health disparities, and other related topics like that?
Yes, absolutely. So our CEPA course, the Core and Trustable Professional Activities course, addresses all of those challenges and issues. We're working on health system sciences right now. We do a variety of cultural competency learning objectives in addition to several simulation exercises that involve those kinds of skills and that kind of understanding and information. I know that we had several of those kinds of questions last week that came up and that we're reviewing on our on our cycle review at the end of next week. But yes, all of those are covered pretty in depth in our Core and Trustable Professional Activities course over the first 2 years, so that students are really prepared to be able to interact with patients in a great way when they get to their scribing and eventually their clerkships.
Okay, and the next question, how often are exams occurring and are they cumulative?
So it depends on the course. Our osteopathic principles and practices course is only 8 weeks long. So they had an exam at 4 weeks and then they have their final exam at the end of this time. For our 12-week courses, they will have one midterm at the halfway point and then one at the end. So right now exams are occurring every 2 to 4 or 5 weeks during the course of kind of how the different courses overlap. Students will have 2 exams at least. Typically, I think it's just 2 throughout the first year for on the same day or the same end of the same review cycle for finals at the end of the term. But other than that, there are only 1 at any given time on any given week. And are they cumulative? Mostly no. So they will mostly be just course related. A final exam will be cumulative for the entire course. So the midterm obviously will only cover material that they have covered up to that point in the course, but the final exam will say that anything for the duration of the course is eligible to be tested on that. One of the reasons that we do that, and then we also have our daily quizzes and our pod exercises, is that we know that spaced repetition is one of the best ways to enforce long-term memory and long-term learning. And so if you are, say, reading the syllabus, going through your learning objectives, watching the videos, maybe first time, and then again with your pod, then taking your daily quiz, then studying for your midterm, then studying for your final, that those repeated views of the same information makes it much more likely that you're going to be able to retain that information long-term. And we know that one of the biggest challenges, particularly with licensing exams, is that the information that you need to know is the amount of information is so vast that it becomes really difficult to remember all of the details that you learned in biochemistry 2 years ago, in addition to all the details that you just learned about pediatrics. So we really enforce that. At the end of your first year, you do take a cumulative basic sciences exam, and that will be for everything. It is not graded. We just want you to know where you are. So you have to take it in order to pass the course, but your score on that doesn't count. And then we'll be taking several practice exams for the COMLEX and the USMLE that are the same way. They're not graded, but we need you to take them so that we can assess where you are and help guide you individually for your studies as you're preparing for those.
All right. Hypothetically speaking, if a student, because this never happens, but hypothetically, if a student were to be scoring below average on the board style unit exams, what type of additional assistance or guidance would be available to them?
So much. So right now our team, our learning services department consists of 2 people, and eventually that's going to be at least 3 people. So the first thing that we're going to do is make you an appointment with our learning services department, and they are going to kind of walk through your study skills, your study plans, your learning style, your entire academic approach, and make sure that you're getting the most out of your time. What we find in many cases is that students that are coming to us or coming to medical school from an undergraduate experience, the volume of information that you have to learn is typically more than the volume of information that you were responsible for in your undergraduate experience. And so for many students, it's not possible. There just aren't enough hours in the day to study the same way. So altering some of those patterns can be the first step. In addition to that, we do have a tutoring program. Right now, our faculty are participating in that tutoring program as tutors. So for example, some of our students that are biochemistry is not their favorite, are working with Dr. Nabel, Dr. Romana in small groups, or as we get closer to the final for that exam, maybe one-on-one. In order to make sure that they really have a good understanding of the material that's being presented. And so, yeah, access to the tutoring program, lots of mentoring. We do have several of our staff that comes directly to us from a boards prep background and that have spent years and years and dozens of hours specifically working with students that are at risk for not performing well on their boards, or that have not performed well on their boards and need to possibly retake them. And so like the skill set and the support system that we've created is to make sure that everyone is more than prepared to go and to pass those exams on the first try with a variety of different resources. Particularly now, since those exams are going pass fail, by the time that our first group of students and therefore our next group of students will be taking them, then we feel very confident that we're going to have the support ready for not only boards, but also for our students that are struggling with one course over another, because we also know that everybody's going to have their courses that are not their jam, but they will have other courses that they're really thriving in. And so we have a support system set up to make sure that we have resources available across the curriculum.
Okay. In the future, does Noorda plan on having a mentorship or tutoring program where upperclassmen tutor or mentor first-year medical students or lowerclassmen?
Yes, we do have plans for that. As soon as we have upper class students, then we will be involving those students in the tutoring program. So if you're performing really, really well, you're academically solid, and we think that you have the capacity and you want to apply for those programs, then we will have those available to help mentor and tutor through that tutoring program first year and eventually second year students as well.
Okay, and then will there be designated self-study time for board prep that students will take during their second year?
That the courses at the end of the second year that we noted are long, but not very deep, if that makes sense. So that really is time that is designated for you to prepare for those, for obviously your boards, but also for your transitions to clinical care at the same time. We do have content that will be there that is specifically targeted towards that, but is also a general review for your first 2 years so that you know that you're walking into that third year going well. But that is a very drawn out time with lots of space to allow you to prepare for those as well.
Okay, can you talk a little bit more about the scribing? I know you kind of touched on that there are some modules that teach them the record systems and that sort of thing, but when they go into the hospitals and clinics, do they get to choose where they go? Is it randomly assigned?
Yes, so it will be assigned to you, but and I know that our clinical team will be able to answer this more clearly because they're working with our partners on how that's going to work. But my understanding is that you will be able to just like in the match, you will be able to designate your preferences for time and or location. The hope at this point is, and the idea at this point is that you'll be rotating through several different types of clinical settings so that you can get experience in more than one kind of clinical setting as you're learning more about each of the settings, each of the specialties, that kind of thing. But you will be assigned. Obviously, we have commitments to our clinical partners about how often and what kinds of calendar shifts need to get covered. Assigned, but you will get to designate a preference that we will do our best to accommodate. It's unlikely that we'll get everybody's first choice all the time, but we'll work together.
All right. And can you talk a little bit more about OMM and like how frequently students are actually working on osteopathic manipulative medicine concepts?
Sure. Yeah. So throughout your first 2 years, you are going to have an OMM lab almost every week. So you'll be learning a new skill, practicing a new skill, getting signed off on a new skill every week. So right now, our students watch the information about a new technique in their pods. There's a video the faculty walks through, explains the concepts behind the technique, demonstrate the technique. Then you go into your lab, and during your lab, you practice in small groups with a faculty member's supervision and guidance. And then for that particular technique, you get signed off that you know how to do it, you're performing it correctly, and you're moving on. Or if not, and you need a little more practice, then you can come in on any of the review afternoons on that Thursday and Friday of every other week to practice it more and get signed off. Or if it's something you've already signed off on and you just want to revisit, then you can do that as well. So very, very consistently throughout your first 2 years with us.
Okay, and then just looking at the curriculum and with the flexibility, do you feel like it's realistic that somebody could work during medical school here at Noorda-COM?
No, I do not recommend it, with the single exception of if you're being a tutor for us, that is working with some of our underclass students as you're moving through the program. But I would not recommend working while you're here. The commitment is, the time commitment can typically be unreasonable to expect to be able to do that kind of balance, particularly because some courses you're going to find very easy and some courses you're not, and not everybody can always anticipate what those courses are going to be for themselves. And so you might go from cruising to needing every spare moment to be able to study, and you holding a consistent job on the side is really not recommended.
And it looks like questions are winding down. It looks like we do have an admissions related one that I'll take. So the question is, how long does it typically take to receive a secondary, and are you notified if you're not going to receive one? So my team, we are small but mighty, and we are trying to review applications and get secondary invites out as quickly as we can. And then those who have even submitted secondaries, we're trying to get those reviewed so that we can get interview invites out again as quickly as we can. So it's an ongoing process. Every day we're in reviewing and making decisions. So there's no set timeline, but know that we are working on it every single day. And you will be notified if you are not chosen to receive a secondary application. We just have a lot that are sitting kind of in the holding pattern right now. We're getting through them as quick as we can.
We promised.
All right. Okay. And then, next question, I guess, is also admissions related, is how often we're planning on sending out interview invites. We don't have a set plan. As quickly as we can get videos reviewed and get those interview invites out, we will do so. Okay, looks like, here's another question. So what would you recommend a prospective student do to prepare for the rigors of a medical school curriculum? And are there specific study strategies that you find useful?
The first thing that I would recommend is that everybody go read the book, Make It Stick. So that is a really wonderful breakdown of much of the research about adult education and how it differs from adolescent and childhood education, and the strategies that are listed in there, once you understand why they are the way they are extraordinarily helpful for setting you up to be successful as a medical student. I think the other thing that you should absolutely take a very hard look at within yourself is how are your organizational skills and your time management skills. If you struggle with organizational skills or time management skills, then it is absolutely worth time learning about strategies for that and practicing strategies for that, because making a schedule, sticking to a schedule, organizing deadlines and tasks is something that is probably going to be stepped up from many of your previous experiences. And if you don't feel very, very comfortable and confident in your ability to do that, then it will serve you extraordinarily well to learn and practice more to make sure that you're not going to hit a road bump when you get to us.
Awesome. Okay, any other final questions that want to come in here? So there is an admissions related question I'll go ahead and take regarding updating the admissions committee about new experiences, employment, volunteer, that sort of thing. We ask that you make any updates or amendments to your ACOMAS application. So you can actually, after you've submitted, you can go in and add additional experiences or work experiences, that sort of thing. And then if it is courses or grades, just utilize the academic update periods to submit those grades and updated transcripts. Okay, so it looks like we've sufficiently answered all of their questions. So thank you for your time today, Dean Brown. And
absolutely, thank you guys.
And thank you all for joining us. And we will be back again next week with our clinical education team talking about clinical rotations, which is a hot topic. So as a reminder, you can go over to our events page, which is noorda.com.org/events to sign up for, to see and then sign up for any of our future sessions. And then if you missed last week's Faculty Friday with Dr. Doherty, you can find that on our YouTube channel as well as on our Facebook page. We have recordings of that live session. So with that, I think we're good. And looks like we've got good positive feedback and everyone found this really super helpful. So thank you again, Dean Brown, for your time.
Thank you guys. Excited to meet you.
Yes, thank you. And everyone have a great weekend. We'll see ya.